Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this evening's CEng. Nice to see so many friendly, familiar faces. It's been a long time since we've carried out face-to-face ones in Birmingham, so good to see a great turnout. We've got a really great speaker tonight. We've got Gary from ECA. He will give himself plenty of plaudits, I'm sure, and he's got an introductory slide. So rather than me repeat that, Gary will do that. Just a few housekeeping rules, especially for those online. Please keep your cameras and microphones switched off unless you'd like to ask a question. But bear in mind that this session is being recorded and will be made available on various media sites. If you want to ask a question, please add it into the chat bar. Again, housekeeping, there are no fire alarms expected this evening, or no drills expected this evening. So if you hear anything, it's outside, right outside the main entrance is where our muster point will be. And if you'd like to make your way there promptly, if we do that, I believe it's a voice evacuation system, 2-stage, so don't panic on that first one. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Gary. If you want to ask questions during the course of the presentation, please feel free to do so, or alternatively wait till the end. So over to you again.
Thank you, Martin. Evening all. That was quite good for this time of night, actually. Forgive me for several things. Firstly, I'm a bit northern. Secondly, I'll shout because there's some people on the Teams call here, so I'll try and stay over by the PC, and I'll be hopefully addressing those guys. Is the volume okay? Brilliant. More importantly, I'm ever so sorry I'm a little bit late tonight because it took me 3 hours to get from Nottingham, which is a bad stretch all through. Martin and I have been trying to put this together for about a year now, and unfortunately the stars haven't quite aligned until this evening. So originally, Martin asked me to come out and chat to you guys about BS 7671, the wiring regs, and what came out in Amendment 2. Which was fine, we can do that. But then we had a corrigendum. So we need to come out and talk about the corrigendum, but the corrigendum doesn't make sense without Amendment 2. So this is a bit of a hybrid presentation. We've got a bit of both here. So we'll go through what I think is probably going to be the top 10 most important changes for you guys. And it is quite tricky with CIBSE because we've got consultants, we've got installers, and we've got tier 1 contractors at different events. So these aren't all the changes by any stretch of the imagination. These are just the important ones, I think, but feel free to chat with me about any of them. We will also cover off what the corrigendum is, what it meant, and how it impacts you, and we'll try and sum it up at the end. More than happy to take questions as we're going. If the question is either very long or the answer is very long, please don't be offended if I just say, can we pick this up at the end, because other people might have some other questions. So I'll welcome over and chat to you. We've chat in this forum, it's not a problem. I might not always have an answer, and that's perfectly fine to say that, because I don't know everything. But if I don't, I'll find out for you. So this presentation is going to give you a bit of an overview of the changes. It's not all of them, and we will look at the corrigendum. In terms of us, my colleague Curtis Jones is here for ECA as well. He's just mentioned to me, a few of you guys have gone up to him and went, "Who are you?" Which is a fairly good question. So ECA, we're the Electrical Contractors Association by a slight different name. We're not the Electrical Contractors Association anymore. We've had a marketing change in the last 5 years. International Business Machines is now IBM. We are just ECA now. And we're a trade association for electrical contractors throughout England, Wales and Northern Ireland. We don't cover Scotland. We're a membership organisation, so organisations come to us and join as either contracting members, commercial associates, consultants, educational associates, and we've got a vast collection of members. We've only got about 2,500 members, which doesn't seem a lot, but the vast majority of them are quite big. So our members turn over, depending on where you get the figures from and what time of year it is, between 6 and 8 billion a year. I think somebody did ask Curtis, are we a bit like the NIC? To an extent, no, we own the NIC. is the easiest way of putting it. So ourselves and ESF own NIC. If you're a contractor working for local authorities, you might need a badge to work. A certification body will do that for you, NIC. We're a trade association, we're a members club, for want of a better phrase, although I'm sure if marketing was here today, they'll say, don't use the phrase club, because we're not anymore. So we are a trade association, we're a body that represents and works with our members. And one of the things we do is work on the standards. So we represent ECA on those organisations that help develop this. And this whole book isn't developed by one person, one body, one organisation. It's developed by hundreds of people, hundreds. So although ECA and myself and my colleagues sit and work on those committees, we might not sit on that particular committee that wrote that particular line. And I certainly wouldn't ever stand up here in front of anyone and say, I wrote all that book and I knew all of it, because I'm pretty sure somebody would pick me up on that and tell me something I didn't know. Also, some of it isn't very good. So I'm quite happy to tell you the bits I didn't get involved in, especially if you start asking questions about protected escape routes later on. We get a lot of them. So this first part is looking at the top 10 changes. Sorry, I'm normally quite animated and I'm aware that there's a microphone here, so I'm going to be doing that and keep coming back. So this is the top 10 changes, and I've tried to put them in a flow. So the way the book is structured, I've tried to go in that order. The first change was implementation, and this was a bit of a swine, not necessarily for the installer, but for the contract itself. Previous editions of wiring regs used to say, as designed by or designed from this date. That's now been removed, and it talks about a date in the past now, 28th of March 2022. Amendment 1 stayed current until the 27th of September 2022. After that, any new work must conform to the requirements of Amendment 2. Fine. But if you had a larger project that was spanning all of those dates and more, what do you do? Well, the answer is contract. It stipulates in the contract what you do and what you must finish that project to. None of you guys, none of you own a crystal ball that works. You do not know what the future holds. So if you started a project in 2019, you didn't know that there was a new standard coming out in 2022. You didn't know what was going to be in it. You must therefore check your contract, see what was in the project, and if it says finish to the latest standard on anything, be it electrical, be it building work, be it fabrication, be it heating, be it mechanical, that's a big awkward ask for anybody who's putting a price in for that, because they don't know what's going to change. If the contract says finish the project to whatever you started to, brilliant. Finish it to that one, whatever it may be. So it all comes back down to the contract and what is stipulated in that specification. From our side of things, we'd always suggest that members, when talking to clients, consultants, tier 1 contractors, say, a new standard has come out. Do you want us to change what we're doing from this to this? But there's a difference between, do you want us to, we are going to. Because some things could be very expensive, very costly, and it might even be so silly that you'd have to go back and rip out certain elements that you'd put in, which isn't practical. So the implementation date, and this was just a very small change, had a massive impact on contract and the legal side of things. So if you have got any questions, check what the contract says. If it says finish to what you started, brilliant, carry on. There's no mandatory need to upgrade. Some clients want it because they want a better asset to sell on at the end of it. This one comes up quite a lot from our members and for different contractors out there, and it's all about RCDs on sockets. The general rule is RCD, socket, put them together. Brilliant. But that's not always practical, and it depends what the unit is doing. So if, for instance, you were working in a data center and you had cabinets that were being plugged in, you'd probably want to avoid that. Absolutely. There's 3 key areas there where it talks about ordinary persons or children. You must put an RCD on those socket outlets that are accessible. In other locations, which is a bit of a catch-all phrase, and then use outdoors. 1 and 2 must have RCDs. Nice and simple. 1 and 3 must have RCDs. Other locations, 2, you can omit an RCD, providing there's a risk assessment for it. Technically speaking, that risk assessment is done by the client, which, to be fair, is almost impossible to get them to do. You can lead them, you can help them, but they have to own that risk assessment. It's a dynamic risk assessment because you might have a socket up here that is providing a garage roller shutter door. Fine. You know it's providing a garage roller shutter door. From the day you finish that project, when you've walked away, when you've left, the client may turn around and go, I'm going to put a bouncy castle outside now, and I'm going to plug it into that. It's a different risk. So they then must consider that risk and mitigate it, which is why the risk assessment belongs with them, not with you, the designers, the consultants, the installers. Doesn't belong with anyone. You can help, but it's not yours. It is the client's to own. So RCDs for ordinary persons and for outdoors, for other locations, the RCD can be risk assessed away. And you have to have a documented risk assessment for that, which is fine. Put this one in, because it's caused a lot of problems over 2 ways. About 5 years ago, somebody decided that we should put an additional earth electrode on all TN earthing systems. Or it was a good idea to do that. It wasn't a good idea. It wasn't feasible. It wasn't practical. So it has been changed from being a mandatory to a recommendation. There is a recommendation to have an additional earth electrode, and that's brought about with the advent of PME earthing systems and the DNO's network falling apart. Despite the fact, since 2017, they've made £15.8 billion in profit. I did check that out the other day as well. Their system is falling apart, and now they're asking us to try and prop it up. It is only a recommendation to put an additional earth electrode. And the word recommendation is key here. This standard, this British standard, has a set of rules and requirements in. Brilliant. Anything in a note or anything that is a recommendation is just that. It is just a suggestion. A recommendation is not a shall. A shall is a shall. A recommendation is just a suggestion. From your side of things, if you're working in the design area, if you're working in the consultancy area, a recommendation is not an absolute. And we hear all the time, well, if it's a recommendation, I've got to do it, because if I don't, there'll be somebody in a fuzzy wig will tell me I've done wrong. Nonsense. And I don't believe there's been any law or case history that somebody has not put a foundation earth electrode in and has been found guilty in a court. And until that day happens, nobody knows if it must happen or the man in the funny wig will tell you. It is purely a recommendation. So don't feel that this is a must. This is something that you have to do. Most of the time, the people who are telling you have to do it are the people who are selling those earth rods. Funny that, isn't it? FDDs. Have you guys heard of these? Yeah? Are you fitting them? Ish, something, no, yeah. So for the last 5 or 6 years, there's been these new wonderful devices called arc fault detection devices, the FDDs. And they've been brought about and been recommended in 7671 in lots of places. Amendment 2 highlighted that they shall be used on single phase AC final circuit supplying socket outlets, only sockets, with a current not exceeding 32 amp in 4 key locations. Higher risk residential buildings, HRRBs, homes in multiple occupancy, a HMO, purpose-built student accommodation. So not if you have a flat that you let out to a student, it's got to be purpose-built student accom, and care homes. So AFDDs shall be provided for socket outlets in those 4 locations. After that, it's recommended, that word again, that they are supplied for other circuits. Just on AFDDs, have any of you guys looked into them? You've seen the difference? Yeah. Do you know roughly the cost of them? About 150 quid. One. What's the cost of a circuit breaker? About 3 quid. So if you were doing a student accom 5 years ago, you were fitting 3 quid circuit breakers, maybe 15 quid RCBOs. Now, 150 quid each, you're popping one of these in. That's a big difference if you've got 10,000 circuits. Additionally, sorry, I'll come back. Fellas, the way they work is they're a little microcomputer, and they look like a circuit breaker because they are. They're a circuit breaker, an RCD, and an arc fault detection device all combined into one single unit. They've got some really good features, but they've also got some negative ones that it's only fair to share. This is a good make. I know it's a good make. There was a manufacturer who made AFDDs, and they said, right, we're going to put a green flashing light on to say it's okay. So it flashes every 10 seconds. Brilliant. Then halfway through a production run, they said, oh, actually, if it's working, it should be a red light because red is danger. So when you turn your circuit breaker on, that off, it's green, it's safe. So they changed the colour to be red flashing light to say it's working. So you had a board, that way, whichever way you went. Some of them were flashing green, some of them were flashing red. So that's a bit awkward. Then you had a different make that yellow was good. So that was nice and complicated when you're trying to speak to a client about a fault. Some of them had a solid light. Some of them had a flashing light. And then some of them, when they went into fault, had a flashing light. One of them, when it goes into fault, has a flashing light for 3 seconds and then stops flashing. Now that flashing light for 3 seconds means something. But if you don't see it, you can't really diagnose what the problem is. That's a bit silly and a bit pedantic to me, but it's annoying. One of the major problems with them is, firstly, they need a minimum current to work. So it's very specific. Socket outlets. It is not a requirement on lighting, for instance, because the load on a lighting circuit will not be sufficient for an AFDD to work. So it's pointless. You can spec them, they just won't do anything. It's a waste of 147 quid. And the big problem with them is they are not tested or proven to work on XLPE cable. I would imagine most of this building is either XLPE or low smoke and zero halogen. My house is in PVC. They'd work okay on my house. PVC, when it gets hot and melts, and it doesn't melt actually, it carbonizes. And the carbon is exactly the same test that this standard, 62606, requires in order for them to rupture. So you need a carbonated path in order to create an arc and for the arc detection device to work. Without that carbonated path, if you get XLPE or low smoke and zero halogen cable, if you burn it, it doesn't carbonize, it just turns into a gunk. That doesn't carbonize. There isn't a conductive path. So these devices won't necessarily work on cables that are XLPE. However, these things, so that's plugged into the socket. We're good. So these things won't work on XLPE cables, but they will work on PVC. So things that are plugged in. So from a specification, from a design point of view, just bear in mind, sometimes they're not really worth it, which is strange, isn't it? Very strange. I mentioned earlier about the people who were saying that an earth electrode is a good idea. It was probably the people who were selling earth electrodes. Guess we thought they were a good idea. No, wasn't us. Sorry, is there any manufacturers in the room, by the way? Damn it. I knew there'd be one. While I'm on it, is there any Sunderland fans in the room? Oh, good, I can go on to that then later. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, you've got,
Yeah.
because you're saying the for other fields through the residents required, but we can't use XLP or zero halogen.
No, sorry. You can use it. Yeah, you absolutely can. It won't work on the cable that's in the wall. Yeah. Unfortunately, the only two options are you either write it up as a departure from the standard, because the standard says thou shall, that one, fit them.
Yeah.
But they're limited in their function and they're limited in their benefit. They'll protect, if you're doing a student resi, they'll protect whatever the student has plugged in, but they won't protect that cable in the wall. So it's not like it's a silver bullet protecting everything on that install. Effectively, and possibly the appliance itself. If these were 150 quid and guaranteed to protect everybody in the building against any form of fire, I'd have them in my house tomorrow. Absolutely, I would. But they're limited in their effectiveness. And that's unfortunately something that is not necessarily always communicated. They do have benefits. They would be beneficial in my house, but they're not the silver bullet, the panacea that some people will suggest that they are. They are useful, but limited. And like I said, they're not useful on lighting circuits, for instance, because there just simply isn't a load. So you could spec them, they just wouldn't do anything. You could spec them for socket outlets, but it would only be limited area of protection, not the cable, but whatever's plugged in. So it would be used, and they can be used, and they shall be used on those cases, but the benefits of them are restricted. So does that answer your question? Brilliant, no worries. Protected escape routes. Has anybody had a problem with this one? Yeah. I'm going to completely ignore you because that was changing the corrigendum. We'll come back to that one a bit later. So that is a requirement that's been brought in where you can put cables in certain areas and not put them in other areas. It's been changed in the corrigendum. So what was brought out in the Brown book is irrelevant. We'll come back to that in a short while. On devices, again, surge protection devices. Have any of you guys had problems with surge devices? No? Perfect, because I'm going to ignore that one as well. That one's coming up in the corrigendum a bit later. So the corrigendum came out and introduced some different changes. They were answered and hopefully clarified in the corrigendum a bit later. This one's a little bit self-indulgent and was brought about by one of our members who's spent years arguing this. And it might not be wholly relevant, so I'm not going to dwell on it too much. Effectively, the change allows for smaller earthing and bonding cables to be used on outbuildings. So if you were doing not a student accom, but a building like this, where you've got multiple outbuildings fed from here, if it was a TNCS PME system, the bonding requirements have to mirror what's in here. So you have to mimic the same size. So the easy example is my house. I've got a little wooden shed in my back garden. My house is on PME. I have 10mm bonding. Brilliant. If I take a supply out to my shed, I can do that in a bit of 1.5, 2.5, fine. If I put something in there that needs bonding, I've suddenly got to run a blooming big cable. I've got to use a 10mm cable because that's the same size as what's in the mains. Scale that up to the point where you've got a factory with 10 outbuildings and a smoker's shelter 200 yards away over there. And that smoker's shelter is on the way to the security gate, which is another 200 yards away. And the security gate has got a toilet in, possibly with some metal pipe work in, that possibly needs bonding. I've got 50mm bonds in this factory. Does that mean I need a 50mm cable to that smoker's hut and to that security gate? It used to say that. Now it's been clarified where you've got a TNS or TT, you can bond it with relation to the size of the incoming cable. So it just means that you can design it a bit better, a bit differently, and just taking common sense into consideration. So it ends up having a much smaller cable or bond going into that far outreaching building. So it might not affect you, but it just might mean that you save a massive amount of copper because we haven't got all of the copper. We have a limited, finite amount. Let's use it where we need it. Solar PV, this has grown massively. I was at an event over in Oswald Street yesterday, which is incredibly far away. Took even longer to get there than here. Solar PV, every single contractor in the room did PV. Every single one. If we'd have gone there 15 years ago, it'd have been a handful. If we'd have gone there 20 years ago, it'd have been next to none. If we'd have gone there 30 years ago, it'd have been none of them. This section has grown massively in terms of what is required, some detail and some identification. I'm not going to dwell on it too much because there is dozens of pages that have come into here. If you are involved in solar, there's a hell of a lot more involved with it now. It's all generally good stuff. And if you're after additional information, the IET makes some really good guides, code of practices, about 50, 60 quid. There's a really good one for solar PV systems. I'd suggest you have a look at that. There's a lot in there. It's very good, very detailed, but too much to cover tonight. Something else that came about recently is this concept. BS 7671 for ever and a day has had 7 parts. Part 1, 7. Part 8 has been introduced, and it's called Chapter 82. And it talks about these new concepts of energy prosumer and a prosumer's electrical installation. What a prosumer is somebody who both produces and consumes energy. So again, thinking of your house, it's somebody with a solar panel. If you've got a solar panel, you're a prosumer. Brilliant. If you're like me and you don't, I'm a consumer. I just buy. This sort of system here of having panels and electric vehicles and being able to run off grid and having energy management systems and having battery storage systems is inevitably where we're heading with buildings. And that's not just on the small, that's on the larger scale. There's a British Geological Survey site near me, and it's got a huge car park. It must have 150 cars in it. They have covered that car park in PV now. All of that car park is PV system now. I think I read something from their blurb that they'll get payback from all of these panels for at least 150 cars in less than 7 years. That's a hell of an investment. God knows how many tens of thousands of pounds that system was to put in, but it was a lot. But to get that back in 7 years, that's worthwhile. And probably from you guys, if you're working on student resi or larger projects, yeah, I imagine you'd struggle now to get anything through without it being covered in heat pumps and covered in PV and all sorts of systems in there. And you'll probably find that things like battery storage systems will start coming into it. Prosumers, it's going to grow. It's going to be a tremendous market. It's a tremendous opportunity now for everybody, including people who are involved in energy efficiency and people who are doing energy audits, that sort of thing. Prosumers installation, it's just a concept, but it's getting bolted and knitted together as we go through. This one isn't necessarily that important to you, but I've kept it in because whenever we do these sort of things for our members, they like this and it's quite good. Electrical contractors, not a single electrician that I know, when you say, why did you go to college and become an electrician? Not a single one has ever said, oh, it's because I like the paperwork. Not one of them. Yet we have a lot of paperwork for electrical contractors to fill out. And the great news is there's a little tick box sheet that has been reduced from about 180 boxes to 14. It just makes life easier. So if you guys are getting, as part of your projects, some paperwork coming across your desk and you're used to seeing reams and reams of ticky boxes, don't be alarmed if there's less, because there doesn't need to be as many. And the amazing thing is I managed to get that little thing working as well. That's quite impressive. So that's the top 10 changes, I think, for 7671. The different requirements that I think are going to impact you. By far and away, it certainly isn't the end of them all. There are a lot of changes, many, many hundreds of changes, and the changes are going to continue. And we've had a corrigendum, and that's created more changes. So a corrigendum is brought about whenever there's one or more error or ambiguity. So when 7671 is published, there's hundreds of people involved, hundreds of organisations working on it, dozens of proofreaders, and then it goes out to DPC, draft for public comment, and everybody in industry can have a look and put comments and feedback back. Even with all those people involved, there's still mistakes, because all of them are people, and people do make mistakes, even if they, pull out a HDMI lead by accident. So a corrigendum is a tool that any British standard can use to correct any errors or ambiguities. And it allows for a very quick, bring it out quite short after the publication of a standard without having to go through a DPC. Whenever you make a British standard, you have to have a minimum X amount of time for DPC, and it's usually 3 months. Some of them can be even more. But a corrigendum can be brought about almost instantly. And there were some errors, and there are some ambiguities. And the corrigendum has tried to address them. I'm not going to say it's addressed all of them, because the standard is currently being wrote for Amendment 3 as we speak. So even though we're sat here right now this evening, having a lovely time and talking about Amendment 2, the work for Amendment 3 is ongoing, and pretty much everything I'm going to talk about in the corrigendum will be changed by the time Amendment 3 comes out in 2026. So I'll come back here again and we'll have some more nice sandwiches. The committee that creates the wiring regs is called Joint Power and Electrical Committee 64, JPL 64. And it's made up of, as I say, dozens of organisations. And the way the committee works is you've got an overseeing committee called JPL 64, and then underneath you've got 4 subcommittees, A, B, C and D. They don't have the most creative names on them. Each subcommittee does all the work and then says, this is the answers, this is what we've done, and we'll pass it off to JPL 64 and they'll read it and either rubber stamp it or send it back. JPL 64 found that there were these errors because industry was talking to them and saying, there's these problems. We need to do something. So ourselves, our brothers and sisters in different organisations, and you guys commented and said, there's some problems. So they fixed them, hopefully. And the way you can do that is if you go on that website, Standards Development, it's a nice, easy, dead quick website to write down, standardsdevelopment.bsidroup.com. So that's nice and easy to remember for the end of the day. There's a little message committee. If you guys feel like there's any problems in any of the British standards, not just ours, any of them, tell them. Don't just sit there, tell them, and they'll do something about it. They'll look into it. And when it comes to draft for public comment, any suggestions or any comments that are put in, as long as they are proper comments and phrased well, don't just say, this is a load of crap, because they won't read that. If you say, I disagree with this because of, and then suggest a solution, it will be looked at. Doesn't necessarily mean it'll be adopted, but I guarantee you it will be looked at. So they looked at the changes and the requirements and found there was 4 major things that they could fix quite quickly. One of them was on protected escape routes, which I think a couple of guys were nodding when I mentioned that. One of them was on the term safety service and SPDs, and then the others were quite specific and relate to hospitals. If any of you guys want to take photos, do let me know and I'll keep the slides on. If I move on too quick, just give us a shout, I'll go back. So in the Brown Book in 7671 Amendment 2, details were this for 422. So protected escape route. Cables or other electrical equipment shall not be installed, blah, blah, blah. You can read all that yourself. It said a concept of protected escape routes. And the idea is quite nice. We've got an escape route that you try and get out. But then you've got a protected escape route, which is something that is designed to last 30, 60, 90 minutes, whatever the fire engineer or the architect specify. Within that protected escape route, essentially all this is saying, don't add to the fire load. This area, this part, this section of the building is designed to be inherently fire sterile. Don't go around putting boards in it and cables and other things that don't need to be there. Only put the essentials, only put the bits that you need. General need lighting, socket outlet for cleaning, etc. However, this did throw up a lot of problems, massive problems, especially in larger projects. So they changed it to emphasise cables or electrical equipment shall not be installed in a firefighting lobby, shaft or staircase. So they've linked it to BS quadruple 9 and they've sort of nabbed a few phrases from 8519 as well. And then it talks about firefighting lobbies, shaft or staircase. And I absolutely guarantee you now that will be changed in 18 months' time. Because I was chatting to somebody who was sat in the room when they were talking about changing it, and they said, we need to change it. Fair enough. So that is going to change. But for now, it's highlighted the fact that a protected escape route isn't just something where you leg it out. It's a escape route that's defined and designed in terms of BS quadruple 9 or BS treble 91. And it highlights the firefighting lobby or shaft. You could say shaft is that it covers everything, or staircase. So it's only highlighting the firefighting aspect of it, which hopefully clarified it a little bit. Unfortunately, it didn't clarify it enough. So this is why there's going to be another change for 2026. And whatever's going to happen is going to happen. It's probably going to emphasize more so the firefighting shaft aspect of it. Because, yeah, it all encompassing and you've got those areas that you can and can't. So it's going to change. For now, the concept is protected escape route, a boxed 30, 60, 90 minute fire engineered firefighting shaft of it, effectively. Keep cables out of there. Don't add to the fire. Talking about. Is that all right? All good? Yeah. Yes.
Does the term cables also apply to data cables? The term cables or other electrical equipment, does that include data cables?
Yes.
So it includes PoE, power over Ethernet.
Yeah. Anything that is also the one it mean. Previous version of the 7671 was always quite limiting and quite restrictive and actually quite ambiguous. Hopefully, it's been clarified that cables and wiring systems can now be installed in corridors of protected escape routes, but cables or other electrical equipment shall not be installed in the firefighting shaft of the protected escape route. So the corridor, fine. The firefighting shaft, the firefighting area, the designated areas, no. But hopefully that adds a little bit of clarity. Yeah, you take your photo, mate. No drums. Do you want me to go back to the other one?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh yeah,
But, you know, the extent of the protected escape route.
absolutely.
Corridors also that protected escape route, especially through the residential and high-rise residential.
I was having a conversation with a fire engineer who was a really good guy, certainly knows his stuff. But when it was that, said, right, protected escape route. Yeah, I'm not happy with that. I'm just going to require it all over. But what? Yeah. So you're not going to allow cables in anywhere in this residential building? No? Do you want to think about that a bit? No, okay, well, we'll not have them in the corridors. What, you're not going to have a cable running down a corridor? How are you going to run them through the flats individually? Well, that's what it says. It doesn't say that. It doesn't. And I could understand to a certain extent his ambiguity, but he got a bit silly with it. Hopefully, this area clarifies it a wee bit more and gives us a bit more room for growth on it.
I think certainly from our industry side, that has clarified it
Mm-hmm.
from my perspective. But I think that was a really valid point about the fire engineers,
Yeah.
architects, structural engineers, manufacturers. I don't think they picked up on it yet. They still keep coming back to saying, oh, no, what university?
The problem I've seen with this is you've got approved document B, you've got BS quadruple 9, and the engineers and the architects sit by them. They have them. They're happy with them. And then you've got this porky little standard for electrics. They don't really care. They're working with approved, and they've heard a rumor about something. Well, it's not in approved document B, so I'm not bothered. So it's trying to get their buy-in to an extent and understand that we're trying to do the right thing by them. And I think the concept is about right, but it's just getting the clarity of it. We as electrical designers do not want to add to a fire load in an area that's designed not to have a fire load, but inevitably it is. Yes, sir.
Issues, even from the fire service point of view, part-time firefighter. That'll be not a higher load, that's why it's falling down.
Yes.
All the time, the scaling.
Yeah, we, funny enough, sorry, I'll go back over it, but mine. You know, I said at the start about the implementation date. When from this point on, it shall be that, but you don't mix and match. About 8 years or so ago, there was a change to the regs to require metallic cable supports. We're all right here. Didn't look like on through our battery. I'll go back over there in a minute. Yeah, they're all metal, aren't they? But sometimes you see a cable placed underneath that tray, tie wraps with plastic, and that was the problem. That was where the cables fell. But that change happened midway through many projects, and you wouldn't have to go back to that project halfway through and start applying metallic supports. That's not practical. But now that change is in place. Basically, every cable is supported by metal at some point, unless it's above a fire rated ceiling, for instance. So in your house, you won't necessarily have metal clips. You're not prohibited from doing it, but the fire rating, I suppose, of that 30-minute fireboard or plasterboard is going to give you sufficient time, hopefully, to get out. We're not designing electrical installation to hold up the building. We're designing it to be, the phrase is, protected against premature collapse to allow firefighters access and egress. And originally it did used to talk about cables just through corridors or under doorways. Then they've changed it to everywhere because as a firefighter, you're not that bothered about the door. You'll go through a wall, a ceiling, a floor, you'll go through anything you can get through that you need to get through. So just because, you know, that bit of cable over there is protected, actually this bit of cable isn't. That's probably more of a hindrance because you're going wherever you want to go in an emergency event. So hopefully it's added some clarity. Yes, sir. Yeah. Mhm.
You propose the government on all the requirements within that form.
Yeah.
That does say you can't pass the services that doesn't have the form.
Yeah.
So is there any purpose for this amendment altogether?
That's a bloody good question. The idea of this was to try and be helpful. And unfortunately, the first edition of it wasn't that helpful. It caused more concern and more questions than anything. And there's a good argument to say, protected escape routes, CBS quadruple 9, do that. Or treble 9-1, do that. End of story. Speak to the fire engineer, speak to the architect. That's all you need to do. This whole concept was designed to bring in about a sort of a sea change mentality in engineering, designers and installers, to just simply not walk into a room or a core and go, I'm going to put a cable there, I'm going to put a board here. And that was where it sort of came from. So the committee I showed earlier, JPL 64, they work across other committees. There's a fire one, FSH, there's lots of numbers, 12 and 14. The fire engineers, they were concerned, exactly as you say, about the cable support and the falling. They were a little bit concerned about people encroaching on their protected zones, should we say, and the lobbies and the shafts and the like. So it was a sort of amalgamation between the fire engineers and the electrical to try and add clarity. Unfortunately, whenever you try and add clarity, the industry's so big, it sometimes adds confusion. And hopefully this corrigendum has changed that and worked on it and improved it. And hopefully, again, the next version. I suppose you could put it down as this. It had good intentions, but it didn't necessarily fulfill them. And that's where we're trying to get to now. It's steady progress, which is a pain, I appreciate, but eventually, fingers crossed, it should be a good and useful thing. But exactly as you say, don't put anything in the firefighting shaft. If you do that, or anything that's not necessary, if you do that, you're generally heading in the right direction. Probably skip over these ones quite quickly, actually, because none of you really nodded. This one's a little bit useful for you. Surge protection devices, protection against transient overvoltage, lightning, for want of a better phrasing. The Brown Book Amendment 2 used to say that protection against transient overvoltage shall, so it's not recommended, it's a shall be provided where you could have serious injury or loss of human life, where failure of a safety service or significant financial or data loss. Do any of you guys deal with resi properties or, yeah? Safety service in some small scale resi, doesn't even have to be big, it's just your smoke alarm. So if you've got a smoke alarm in your house, and I know I have several, I have to fit an SPD protecting that. Problem is, it doesn't work, unfortunately. So the SPDs are very limited again in their ability to protect certain things, and the voltage output of the SPD and the product that is protecting don't quite align. And we were speaking to a lot of social housing providers, housing associations, and there was one, I can't remember the stock, it was something of saying like 18,000 houses. They were going around and putting up new smoke detectors in all the houses, and when this came about, they stopped because they hadn't allowed the budget for an SPD. That's madness. You're not fitting a smoke alarm that is guaranteed and proven to save lives because you might want to fit an SPD that could do something in the event of possibly something maybe happening. Yeah, not a great move. So that one was deleted. Doesn't mean you don't have to consider it. You can do, of course you can. And you probably want to fit things like a fire alarm panel. If you've got a big mains panel, yeah, you might want to fit an SPD, but not for small stuff. Really isn't necessary. So that has been removed in the corrigendum. So it means that the term safety service is now no longer referred to, and overvoltage safety protection is no longer mandated fire protection or alarm systems. It's still required where you've got a risk of loss of human life or significant financial or data loss. And that term significant is variable, very variable. I was chatting to a contractor last year who was working at the drummer from Coldplay's house. Nice work if you can get it. He wasn't working in his house because, you know, that was too big. He was working several hundred meters away at the bottom of his lake. He had a lake on his land. And they were building a small studio. And it was like the size of a six-bedroom house. So it was a small studio at the bottom of his house. I would suggest he's probably got more kit in his small studio than my street has got. And I live on quite a decent sized street. But is it significant to him? Yeah, probably. It's probably got a couple of albums on it. You might want to fit an SPD on there. I've got a laptop and an old telly. I don't have an SPD. It's not significant for me. So that area is up for discussion with the client. Some clients have got significant elements to them. Some clients don't. If you're working for a guy who owns a chip shop, probably not an issue. If you're working for a data center, probably is an issue. So it's up to the client in that sense. And if you want to, if you're an ACA member, we've got forms that you can use and discuss with your client and get them to sign it. And then effectively say, we've done a risk assessment. We don't think it's necessary. And then if the client does have a problem with it and they come back to you, well, we did tell you. And it just allows you to clarify that with them. Is that one all right? Yes. That one? No. Yeah. The easiest way of describing it, in your house right now, there's a service head with 100 amp fusing. There's a fuse board consumer unit with a 32 amp ring circuit. And then you've got your telly with a 3 amp fuse. Yeah. Type 1 is the 100 amp. Type 2 is your 32. Type 3 is your 3 amp. If you swap that 3 amp and 100 amp round, probably won't do much good. But equally, if you put that 100 amp, left it there and put another 100 amp on your telly, probably wouldn't do much good either. So they've got to be designed in a cascading way. And these sort of things come from a separate British standard called BSEN 62305 that talks about lightning protection system. And it's massive. It's 4, maybe a bit 5, depending on the extra bit at the bottom. 4 sections. And there's 150 pages that talks about the risk assessment as to whether you need a lightning protection system on its own. Well, I'm fairly sure if you go to somebody like FIRS and you ask them to do a lightning risk assessment on your shed, they'd say, yes, of course they would. But then once you've got that, and once you've got a genuine need for lightning, then you have to consider what you're protecting inside. And the lightning will protect the outside of the building, the case. But your products inside, the lightning protection system does nothing for them. And that's where SPDs come in. And as you say, type 1 typically goes at the origin. Potential bonding SPD is called. You normally stick them where you've got an lightning protection system. Then you have multiple type 2s throughout the system. You can get combinations of them, I'm sure you guys have got. You can get combinations that work here, there and everywhere, and you put them at different boards, and then you put type 3s on sensitive small bits of kit. So I would imagine if you went in around here, maybe it's quite newish, you might find that there'll be a type 1 at origin, type 2 at some boards, and then type 3 on the very sensitive scoreboard on the cricket pitch or something along those lines. The concern I have is that's half a dozen lines. And as I say, 62305 is about that thick on its own. You've tried to condense everything into something. And a bit like the protected escape route bit, trying to be helpful, but actually it's more of a hindrance at times. And sometimes SPDs are just simply not needed. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. One of the problems I often have is people will carpet bomb a solution and you'll fit SPDs everywhere. And that's fine if you want to do it, but it's not the solution. It's not always the right answer. And sometimes clients end up being almost misled and having a false sense of security. I've got SPDs, I'm fine. Well, actually, that's okay if you've got an SPD there, but what if the surge comes in over there? It's got to go through my router before it gets to my distribution board, if it comes through the data cable. If it comes through the aerial, it's going to have to hit my telly first before it gets to my distribution board. It offers me no benefit in that sense. You have to use them in an organised way to have a real benefit. Generally for this, we typically recommend a lightning risk assessment, and hopefully somebody like an Omega Red Group, a proper reputable lightning protection company can come around and say, right, you need this here, you need that there, and you don't need that there. People who certainly know what they're doing in that sense. There are a few of them about, they are quite good to deal with. So the term safety service has been removed, and as I say, you can use risk assessments for where you want to omit them. The next two are very niche and very specialist and only really related to hospitals. And unless you guys are doing many hospitals, it's very quick, this one. Used to talk about fixed baths and sections and zones and requirements, and then somebody went, we don't need that, let's change that. Birthing pool, it's not a fixed bath, we'll get rid of that. Because if you're in hospital and ever somebody's giving birth in a room where there's a birthing pool, you want a socket, of course you do. But as it stood, you couldn't. So that's been chucked out now, and it allows people to have a birthing pool with socket outlets in there. Pretty sensible, pretty sensible. And finally, the last one is also about medical occasions. And this is a new reg that's been thrown in, and it lines up with the protected escape routes element as well. So it says in hospitals, you have got specific requirements and specific needs. Sometimes you don't have a protected escape route. Sometimes it's not, it's all just open, and you can put cables wherever you require them because the escape route isn't necessarily there, it's here. So it just aligns with the HTMs, the Health Technical Memorandum, in terms of its guidance there. So for guys working in hospitals, means designer can install electrical equipment in what may be a protected escape route, but not necessarily in the firefighting shafts. They'll keep that separate. Any questions on any of that? Look at that. We've all stayed awake, which at this time of night is quite good. There's some water running through here, so everybody needs a wink. So that's brilliant. This is just a very quick whistle-stop tour. These are some of the headlines for Amendment 2, not all of them by any stretch of the imagination. There are loads, and more than happy to take any questions that you guys have got on them or anything else. Corrigendum is out and has took immediate effect. So anything that was in the corrigendum has usurped anything that was in Amendment 2. There is going to be an Amendment 3. It's coming out in 2026, I think. So whatever is happening now is true today, but don't let it sit there forever. It will change. If any of you guys are ECA members, you can get all sorts of free guides. If you're not an ECA member and you want a guide about the corrigendum, if you Google IET corrigendum to BS 7671, there's a brilliant free article. I think it's about 8 or 9 pages long, and it goes through all the corrigendum changes by one of the engineers at IET. I think it was by a chap called Michael Peace. It's really good. It's really easy to digest. And if any of your clients or the fire engineers and the likes that you're dealing with, pass that to them. It explains it in a lot of detail. IET, corrigendum. If you are struggling, get in touch and we can send you a copy over. For our side of things, we just say try and ensure that you're familiar with the changes that impact you and your business. If you have got any issues, feel free to give us a call. We're more than happy to help you out where we can. Otherwise, that's about it. More than happy to take questions on that or anything else. Straight away, there you go.
Just recently Regulation 1.7.2.
Okay. Right. I'm glad you said generator. Yeah.
And it's tragically saying that the assembly is nuclear assembly.
The rate.
The rate.
Yeah.
The income. Protection device plus the gen.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, we do big projects, big projects with a number of high levels consultants, and
You know, I've not come across anywhere where the switchgear is double rated because it's, you know, it's going to go crazy.
It's a good point, and this was something that could have easily been in the corrigendum. It was probably picked up a little bit too late. The concept's great. If you take out things like PV and you just think of a normal diesel gen, if you have that on as an additional supply to a building and there's a fault somewhere, the fault is going to be seen when not you're on mains, not you're on gen, but when both's happening. When you've got that plus that equals a bit more than that. That's when the fault's going to happen. So for those systems, yes, I can understand why you need switchgear that's effectively double rated. It's got to be able to work with the highest and what probably isn't considered well, the lowest fault. Yes. It's fine when you've got that set up, but if you go from mains to diesel Jenny, the fault currents drop massively and half the circuit breakers won't work. That one was effectively an anomaly, and I'm fairly sure that's been picked up and will be changed. I don't think it's the intention is that, but you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
A lot of chat about it on the.
Oh, has there?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think it comes down, yeah, comes down to common sense, doesn't it? You know, where you've got that load and that load, if they are likely to be simultaneously providing full load, then yeah, fair enough. But if they're not, it's just a bit of engineering judgment. But I am aware of that one. I do know it's being picked up on. Yes, sir.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Um,
Uh-huh.
and anything.
Correct.
The insurers looking to insure the building without AFTDs.
Not in this, no.
Not in that, but it is in the guidance for AFTDs.
Okay.
But something I wanted to pick up on the question whether coming across before whether in project like stadium, let's say,
Ah, okay.
do we need to get in touch with the client and their insurers to confirm whether they're happy to insure without AFTD? Because that is something that you wouldn't put an AFTD on.
Always a good idea to speak to the client and their insurance in terms of what's there. From our side of things, AFDDs are needed in those 4 places. Anything else? Not necessary. It might be an upsell. It might be something. And I do know that a friend of mine who works at a consultancy in Nottingham, his clients all insist on having AFDDs because they want an asset they can sell after X number of years at a higher price. So they are saying, I don't care what the regs say, I'm going to pay for them. Nice clients to have. But I'm going to pay for these products because I want to sell the building and I want to ensure it is absolutely 100% as high a spec as it can be. But anything outside of those 4 places, HRBs or HRRBs, HMOs, care homes, student accom, it's not necessary. You can always speak to the client and you can always talk about the benefits where there are some, and there will be some. It depends as well on what the nature of the building is. I was chatting to somebody who insisted on them on a hotel, but that's because he knew that hotel had previously had problems with vermin. So I think it was squirrels actually, were chewing the cables in the walls. Perfect place to put them. Absolutely perfect example of where they should be used because they can offer additional protection in that sense. But here, probably very little need in this area.
Why don't we know that with some relevant information?
Not necessarily.
Isn't it down to the client to provide an assessment of their needs?
Oh, absolutely. The client is key and they need to give a specification. Otherwise, it reverts back to the regs. The regs say you either fit them there or you don't fit them anywhere. If it says that, fine.
From a contractor point, obviously, a lot of consultants say, actually, down to you, if the contractor decide whether or not they need to go on. And we
No.
know that's not the correct approach. It's not even the consultant, it should be the client.
Absolutely.
And that's really key.
We're very careful in our wording to our members to say, if you've got a project and you don't have design responsibility, don't take it. Absolutely not. It's a very different phrase to saying, I think you should change that to, I would suggest you ask a question about that. One suggests you take design responsibility and gives you something to discuss with your lawyers. The other doesn't. Any other questions on that? Look at that.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
Good silence, yeah. That's not bad.
A few questions.
That was all right, wasn't it? It was good.
But in fairness, Gary never fails to deliver. I've seen a couple of presentations where he's done.
I've done my
He
answering
actually,
enough.
he actually makes something that could actually be really boring.
Less boring.
Less boring. Obviously, Gary has done an absolutely first class job. And
Thank you, Gary. Oh,
it's
good.
what we've been trying to.
But 18 months.
18 months. Get something in the diary for 2026.
Yeah, book it in now.
So,
Book it in now. Any other questions on be it this or anything else in terms of wiring regs? Happy to discuss anything from that side. Yes. Yeah.
What's the detect the noise of the cable and so then,
I'm not 100% sure that's what they're designed to do. The AFDDs to 62606 work on an arc between the lives or the neutral conductors. If they can't see that arc, they won't necessarily do it. You're from Schneider, aren't you? Yeah, brilliant. I was chatting to a guy who recently had a student come that spec Schneider AFDDs, and the clients, I'm going to use a phrase that I don't like here, but somebody value engineered it. Because it's a horrible phrase because it's not engineering and there's no value. It's rubbish. They moved away from Schneider and got another making, shall we say. The contractors had to go back with the manufacturer. It must be on about 10 visits now, back to site, because each student com has got a microwave in that is causing that AFDD to trip. Now, I don't know whether your ones do. These ones are non-updatable. So these are locked units. You can't update the microcomputer. So, okay, we'll take all of the products out and we'll put new ones back in that have got a new program. Brilliant. Still tripping. We'll take all of the products out and we'll send them off to wherever this particular manufacturer buys them from, and we'll get them tested. Well, this one particular manufacturer buys their microcomputers in from, I think it's Western Automation, who supply it to half a dozen manufacturers. Without being unfair, probably on the lower end of the market. So that one problem is affecting half a dozen manufacturers on this one microwave that is used in 100, 200, 400 units in this student com. So they've had to take the AFDDs off entirely because there's an issue. And that's where it becomes a bit of a problem as well. The AFDDs are tested to do very specific things. It's just where you throw a curveball in. And this particular microwave, for whatever reason, is causing this particular manufacturer to have a problem with it. Now, whether or not they'd stuck with Schneider and it wouldn't have been a problem, probably not an issue. But that's the problem with value engineering. You go and get a cheaper, better value for money solution, and it isn't always the solution. Penny wise, pound foolish, sort of thing. Yeah. So yeah, the way the AFDDs are designed is for that carbonated arcing, and if you can't create that carbon, you can't mimic that fault in real life. But in terms of the testing of the products themselves and the manufacturing, they can only test them against so many things, and if there's a new thing, it's not able to necessarily go up with it. But it is a bit of a problem I'm finding in the market at the minute. Anything else? Awesome. Thank you very much. Hey.
So we've got Snyder, Pearson Consults, and Evanston's Electrical. And without their help, we wouldn't be able to afford to put the events on in venues of this nature. So again, please let's give those sponsors again. It looks like you came out of that quite well done, Kim. Thanks very much.
You were twitching at the start, weren't you? I saw all the beer mats on the table. I thought, oh, fair.
So we've got a note of who's been in this evening. If you want your CPD certificate for this, you will need to send an email into cpd@cibsewm.org. Sorry about that, but that's the way it's done now. There are a few committee members here tonight, so please don't chuff. If you could give us feedback, you know, venue, well, we know what the quality is like.
No, don't have questions.
Anything else you want to see in the future as well. You can follow our website, West Midlands CIBSE, and also the Eventbrite page for West Midlands. There's loads of events on there up and coming. We've got week commencing, the 24th, 25th and 26th of this month are very busy. So we've got one on the 24th, carbon steel, advanced level details, so maybe not that interesting for electrical guys here. We've got the Sophie insights into sustainable innovation, the pan building, and the hydrogen, which again, that might be an interesting one, the future of heating and in the carbon central grid. There's a few really good ones coming up. We've got some more planned for later in the year. So we've got CIBSE Technical Director Hal Davis coming up on the 28th, is it, Josh? 28th, to give a bit of an update on the building safety regulations and that. Hal was very, very into that and he knows it very well. So if you're interested in that, that'll be an absolute great one on the 28th. We haven't finalised the venue there. Jack over there is busily working on that one. And that's about it really.